All right, welcome to the Lou Lee Podcast, the podcast where Lou and Lee interview our friends. We ask them lots of different questions about their life, their work, everything that's going on, and find interesting things about what they have to say about life in general. My co-host, Lee.
The better half of the Lou Lee combo.
I don't know about better, but it certainly is a half of the Lou Lee podcast.
And today, our guest, Kieran Kneisel.
Evening.
Hello, Kieran.
How's it going?
Good. So we've been trying to do this podcast for what? It feels like a month, but I don't think it's been a month. I think
A couple of weeks.
we've scheduled and canceled the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So here we are. We're finally here. And it was funny. I was talking to Lou last night, and I was like, I feel like I'm forgetting what I want to talk about because I've been so prepared for weeks now that I'm like, I don't remember what I want to talk about.
It's been a total roller coaster for me.
Yes.
Like at first I was like so confident and I didn't have anything prepared, and I'm like, this will be easy. I've just talked to Kieran. It's obviously very interesting stuff, so that no problem. And then after talking to Lee, it was like, and this was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was like, have you prepared anything? And I'm like, no, maybe I should start preparing. And then I got really nervous, and then I started preparing more stuff and then got less nervous. And then as we've been delaying this thing, it's just been getting more and more nervous. And now I'm like somewhere in the middle. So I think this will be good.
I prepared a medium amount. I remember saying this like 2 weeks ago. I was like, I prepared a medium amount and I'm super confident it's going to go super well. And I literally just wrote down a couple of questions.
All right, let's just get into it then.
Okay, Lou Magoo, you start out off.
All right. So, Kieran, you are an aerospace engineer. Is that right?
By training. Yes, sir.
You went to Ryerson for aerospace engineering, right?
Famous school that no longer exists.
Right. It's no longer called Ryerson, right? What's it called now?
Oh, right.
Toronto Metropolitan University or something like super bland.
Right. So your degree says Ryerson, but
Yeah, I think
that's not a school.
light it on
And
fire
what's the
or
deal?
something.
He was just like a super racist dude, or?
Yeah, apparently he was one of the architects of the residential school system. So yeah, totally a great guy.
So you got your aerospace engineering degree, and you work for CSA now, which is what does CSA stand for? Or
It's Canadian
what is
Space
it?
Agency, but I'm actually I work for a contractor to them called MDA.
right, MDA. What does MDA stand for?
It used to stand for McDonald Detweiler and Associates, but the 3 letters MDA is actually just the company name now.
Oh, okay. All right. So, what's your role at MDA?
At the moment,
Like, what's your official title?
the moment I am the project engineer for the mission operations portion of GERS program, which is Gateway External Robotics System, basically Canadarm3.
And a lot, like whenever you get introduced, our friends introduce you to people, everyone always calls you a rocket scientist. Does that resonate with what you do at all, or is that just like a funny term that people use to describe what you do?
It's more become that, especially the farther I get from school. Like, I studied that, but I've never practiced, and we don't really do that in Canada too much, although apparently we might start. But no, it's not really what I've ever actually done in practice.
Do you like that people introduce you as a rocket scientist? Does it bother you at all?
No, that's the thing. I'm trying to figure out how to answer that because I don't really have any feelings on it. It's just a quirk. Kind of go one way or the other. Not a big deal.
So MDA is contracted by the CSA, the Canadian Space Agency, and they built the original Canadarm 1?
Yep. Yeah, that was...
And Canadarm 2?
And Canadarm 2. Yeah, that was...
Canadarm...
companies evolved over the years, but all of those were essentially the same organization that is now today MDA, and it was all for the CSA that stuff was done.
And like Canadarm 1 was like on shuttles?
Yeah, exactly.
And Canadarm2 is on the International Space Station. Was it also on shuttles, or is that...
No, they coexisted, and the shuttle would fly up to the ISS, and there'd be handoff between the two systems, and the programs definitely interacted for a while, but the arms are specifically designed for the vehicle that they're on. So the shuttle arm was tied to the vehicle, and the station arm could not leave the station.
And now Canadarm3 is going to be on the...
Lunar Gateway.
What did you call it? The Lunar Gateway, which is going to be replacing the International Space Station?
That's one way to look at it. I wouldn't really think of it as replacement, because the ISS does it's a very different vehicle than what the Lunar Gateway is being designed to be. They will coexist for a certain period of time. Right now, the ISS will go till at least 2030, and I think the first piece of Gateway gets launched in the next couple of years at the latest. So they're kind of two separate programs, but it is definitely the next step, taking humans farther into space.
So what specifically does the new vehicle do? Like, what is its purpose?
Well, so to answer that, actually, I'll go back to ISS. ISS is in low Earth orbit, and so it's the first... Well, maybe I shouldn't say the first human continuously inhabited space station, because that's not actually true. But it is definitely the longest running space station inhabited with the most people on board at this point. And it's a massive platform for science in low Earth orbit and medical experiments and all of that type of thing. But the low Earth orbit environment, we've gotten very good at operating there, at building machines to go there and take us there, and it's becoming an area of space that commercial entities can basically start moving into. And there are a number of commercial space stations that are under development right now. And I would even say that those are actually the things that will replace ISS. The Lunar Gateway is the next government-funded program, and that's going to be a space station that orbits very close to the moon. And the environment of space is actually fairly different out there compared to low Earth orbit. There's still protection from the Earth. Radiation environment is much harsher that far out. It's also logistically just a lot harder to get out there compared to low Earth orbit. And so you have to design things very differently, both to survive and to be light enough to send out there. And then there's communication challenges, a bunch of stuff like that comes along with doing this. So it's a new challenge at the end of the day, and it's the first step, or the next step, to try to get humans onto the moon in a continuous present, and eventually onto Mars.
Last time we went to the moon, we didn't obviously have this type of vehicle sitting out there. Does it make it easier to land on the moon and get off of the moon by this being in orbit, in constant orbit of... It's in stationary orbit, right? Between Earth and the moon?
Not a stationary orbit, no, but there are points in space called Lagrange points that they're essentially fixed relative to two bodies, and this station will actually relatively tightly orbit one of those Lagrange points, so it'll stay at a relatively consistent distance between the two. I say relatively consistent, but the Earth and the Moon are always getting a little closer and a little farther apart from each other. But
I see.
It'll kind of maintain the same relative distance between the two. And it definitely makes it easier to get there, right? If you go straight from Earth, you go with a one shot, and you go straight to the moon, and you have to carry everything with you. There's no stop in between to change out equipment or refuel or repair anything. You go to the moon, and then you come back, and it has to be one machine that does all of this. With the space station in between, you get the opportunity to essentially have all those things don't have the luxury of when it's a one-shot deal. So you can send crew to the station, you'll have medical facilities, you'll have science facilities there, you'll have storage, you'll have equipment, and they'll basically arrive and then prep for lunar descent as part of a 1 to 3 month stay on that. And so it gets a lot easier to break, because you can break the trip up. And you can also logistically manage it in a way that's less expensive and less arduous for humans.
Is would we be sending people to this space station first, and then they would stay there and then go down to the moon? And would we put stuff on the moon first? Like, all of this stuff seems like no-brainer stuff. Like, why didn't we do this stuff when we first went to the moon? Was it just like not feasible then?
It's interesting because it was definitely envisioned all the way that far back. Maybe not, Cold War space race got to be the first to the moon, but immediately after, it was already being talked about to do this. And it's interesting, if you go back and you look at the history behind the shuttle program, you'll actually see that the shuttle program was actually, and the ISS even, was actually just step 1, step 2 of a much bigger, ambitious plan to establish a presence on the moon. If I remember correctly, even go farther. But at the end of the day, it was money that got in the way. They only got funding to do the steps that they've taken so far, and ultimately, politics and funding just wasn't there to make it happen. Whereas in the space race, it was got to beat the Soviets, right? So every dollar, blood, sweat, and tears, it's all fine. Put it all in. We're getting there first. That mentality went away.
Yeah, and even today, it's a pretty polarizing discussion, right? Like the funding of NASA.
It can
I know
be,
a lot of people.
It can be, yeah.
On quite polar opposite sides.
I hear the argument like why figure out problems outside the Earth when we have so many problems on Earth, but that's such a silly argument.
I am inclined to think so, certainly. I mean, the total, and not even because I make my livelihood doing it, but I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. The funding that space agencies get, especially in Canada, the CSA's funding relative to most other government programs is very modest. At least major other government programs.
Well, it's not... Sorry, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, if you spend $1 billion over the course of 20 years on Lunar Gateway, which is roughly what the price tag is for Canadarm3, from start to finish, we spend every year on healthcare alone? Something like 40 more? I have no authority to state numbers on it. I'm just trying to remember what I've read. But if you're hypothetically spending 40 times as much money in a single year on one problem that we can't seem to fix properly, as opposed to spending a tiny fraction of that over the course of 20 years for massive technological benefit.
That's the thing, right? That's what's left out of the equation is you assume that when you solve problems in space that it's just space solutions that are being generated. But if you look at all the technological advancements, and it's not just like we have microwaves now that can heat up your food faster. It's like we can do CT scans and stuff, and all that stuff was all generated through the space programs by them doing random stuff and whatever. And it's like it literally saves lives. So like, although you think there's bigger problems on Earth, like we're actually solving a lot of those problems by spending in space.
Yep, completely agree. And it's not even things that we would think of as technology like phones or microwaves or
communication.
Like yeah,
literally all communication which goes through satellites.
Yeah. But it's not. It's even more basic than that. Like the design of aircraft runways were modified based on space shuttle experiences. So we land planes in a safer way because the shuttle, like it's pavement, but it's better.
Yeah. So what is the difference between then and now when it comes to politics? Like, I didn't actually realize, and I didn't know that the initial ISS plans, like you said, were much larger and then abruptly stopped when funding had changed. That sounds eerily familiar to where we're at now with an ambitious plan. Step 1 is the station, step 2 is the moon, and step 3 is like Mars. Like, what's to stop funding from just completely annihilating that plan?
Nothing.
Is it relatively cheaper now in terms of like
no
overall budget against how much it'll cost for us to do it?
I genuinely don't know. But there are kind of two things for me in this. One of them is the fact that there was an adversary that we were trying to beat back then. And, well, I say we were Canadian. It was really the Americans and the Soviets, and nobody else was involved. But, West versus communism. And that adversarial nature, maybe I'm a pessimist, but personally, when you look at humanity, that drives us a lot more than anything else to actually achieve something. Whereas everything that when we don't have somebody we have to beat, we hem, we haw, we debate, we take our time, we waste a lot. And we're not as eager or single-minded to get there. And maybe that's a good thing, and maybe that's a bad thing. And
so what you're saying is we should escalate the war in Ukraine in order to further humanity's advancement in space exploration through conflict.
I'm just going to say no.
All right.
Good answer.
No, but I mean, this is also something that setting aside the war in Ukraine, I have said for quite a while, and I think it's kind of depressing to say it, but I think it's true, and I don't mean that it's something I would trade for a different form of government. Democracy is awful for a long-term program like a space program, because every time you vote, you get in different people with different priorities. And that's not a bad thing, generally. Democracy is good, in my mind. But for a long-term view program, if you don't have consistency between governments, it makes it very hard to execute them without a lot of churn. And the space program simply can't operate on short timelines.
So the current plan for the new space station is being driven by NASA, and they've asked other countries to participate. And so Canada and the CSA has agreed to participate, and so they're working with your company, MDA, to build the Canadarm3 to assist with the whole program, right?
Yeah, so it is an international partner program, like the ISS. The makeup of the international partners looks a little different. Russia is not involved, and there is an as yet unconfirmed new partner that might be joining to take over part of the vehicle. And Canada's contribution is actually larger than it was on ISS. So on ISS, the CSA funded MDA to design, build, and perform a number of the supporting function that's necessary to operate the system. All on the engineering support side. And then operation of the system was actually the purview of CSA and NASA. Under Canadarm3, Canada's aiming, all of our plans are to do all of that in-house. So Canada's going to be the sole owner and operator of this system on the new vehicle, which is something Canada has done as part of the ISS program working with NASA, but we've never done this on our own before, let alone with contractors. And previously it was all civil servants working for CSA who were doing it. So now CSA is trying to push industry to the forefront, and then NDA is the prime contractor to make it happen.
So how much of that whole deal from NASA to CSA to MDA, like how much of that contract is MDA exclusively doing?
Oh, that's a tough question, and I honestly don't know how much I can honestly answer.
Okay, but I assume a large portion of it.
So one thing just to say is that it's not that NASA's in any way funding CSA to do this. This is Canadian government.
Sorry, yeah, right.
So this is Canadian taxpayers, Canadian government are paying for our space program to do this, and this is Canada's contribution to the international combined effort. And then, as the prime contractor, MDA is responsible for design, construction, operation, engineering support, software, everything. But that doesn't mean subcontracting doesn't happen, and it, in fact, has to happen. Part of the way CSA structures a program like this is to ensure benefit across a broader segment of industry, not just to a single company. And so MDA is actually committed to making sure that happens as part of this. It's part of our responsibility as the prime contractor.
That makes sense. And so this leads into the work that you've been doing recently, which is assisting with setting up the new headquarters, right, for MDA out of Brampton, is it?
Yep, that's right. Brampton, Ontario.
And so you had helped with that, right? And walk me through, how did that start? what is the timing between like, okay, the CSA is like, okay, we're committing to, we're going to do this Canadarm3 thing and we're going to have that on the new space station, but we want to be responsible for all of the operations for that. There's obviously then a conversation with MDA that's what's going to happen. And MDA's like, look, if you want to do this, we probably need a new building to do it in. Like how does that conversation all happen and who decides that?
So, lots to unpack there. The new building and the program are not actually tied together in that way.
Okay.
MDA, has gone through a substantial evolution in the past 10 years. Part of being, an independent company and assembling, purchasing a number of other entities to create a larger company, and then ultimately breaking away from it in the end to be a standalone company again. And part of that, and this is perhaps some amount of speculation on my part as well, because I have no idea what senior management, strategy and decision making is.
Sure.
But, part of that is building a new headquarters for the company today, because the building that they were in Brampton, it was in need of replacement. And so they wanted this building to be the building that MDA was planning to grow into, that essentially enabled all of its aspirations as a company. And so one of those aspirations was to win the Canadarm3 sole source, or this contract from CSA, which they did. And as part of that, MDA was actually willing to put their neck on the line in the form of a substantial sum of money to start in advance to show CSA, we're serious about this. We're going to build this facility. We want you to use it, but we're taking the risk here. And, I can't say what level of contractual negotiation or agreement or anything has happened between CSA and MDA. There's certainly a lot, and I'm not part of it. But the building wasn't constructed as after the contract was awarded. This was something that MDA was going to do.
But was a part of the proposal to be like, this, we're committed, and this shows our commitment, and this is how we want to move forward.
Yeah, and the proposal that says we can operate the system for you from our facility, here it is, we're building it already. Yeah. So, and that kind of first became a thing for me. They've been talking about new building for Brampton for years. It had always kind of come and gone with previous CEOs and priorities from the company, different economic outlooks and all that stuff. But most recently, I got a call 3-ish years ago now, might be, early COVID, from one of my managers. And all he said was the CEO wants a full concept, full-up idea of what a mission control facility would look like in the new building, which had not been announced yet. And he needs it in 2 weeks. Can you do that?
You being a civil engineer and have designed buildings before. Right?
Exactly.
How do you start thinking about that? I guess you look at what other mission control rooms look like, and how do you start thinking about what it'd be pretty easy to copy what we've done for the past 25 years, but how do you think about what we're going to need in the next 25 years?
Well, also, what if you're the one designing it? Does that mean you're the one that would be in charge of it?
Oh, there's certainly no guarantee of that. But this was the initial proposal, initial idea to put in front of them so that they can see, okay, yes, this seems to be what we need. This fits our vision, and this is doable, and we want to do this. Most importantly, so I mean, things have evolved since. I'm not in any way in charge of it. I play a supporting role as part of this, but for that 2-week period, I basically had to start looking at comparable facilities. I have experience performing engineering support for the Canadarm2 program, so I know what our facility looks like. I know what the operator facilities for that program look like. I had some calls with folks who used to work for MDA or CSA who are overseas. Basically pick anybody's brain I could find about where they're working now, what it looks like, what they're doing, what they've learned, and then that just covers human spaceflight robotics. What I was asked to put together was something that covers human spaceflight robotics, commercial robotics, potentially some stuff I can't actually talk about, but on the order of highly secured facility type things that for customers that they want to approach and who have those types of needs. And essentially I had 2 weeks to talk to as many people as I possibly could to bring together essentially the requirements at an extremely high level, a rough idea of how much space this would all take, how many people involved in these facilities, and then I had access to a graphic artist for like 3 days, put it all together. Then I had to sit in front of the CEO and the senior management team and explain who the random guy from Montreal was.
And so you must have ended up having to make a lot of small guesses of what things would look like, right? Like, like literally where people sit and why they would sit there, and like the different roles of people and who would be involved, and like and I guess that's just all from experience, right? And what you've seen work and what you probably had wished for when you were on a mission, working in one of those rooms and being like, it would be probably better if these two people sat closer together, or if there was a big screen here that showed this information or something like that.
Yeah, definitely part of it. I mean, I have experience in human spaceflight robotics, so I know what it is we do today. Even for those functions that I don't understand fully, and I will never understand everything fully. I don't think anybody ever really could. It's just such a big beast, something like ISS. But for the robotics portion, I have a pretty good idea. And then, for something like satellite operations, I didn't have the first clue. So that's where you have to start talking to people. How do you guys do this? Turns out it's actually fairly different from how human spaceflight robotics stuff like that. You have to start asking the people who think they want to use this facility, what is it you need, what is it you actually envision doing, and then you definitely have to start extrapolating and trying to fit what you understand into what it is they want to do, come up with what those needs are, at least the first cut.
Do you enjoy doing that kind of investigative work?
It was probably one of the most fun 2 weeks of my entire career.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the fact that I now see that concept on YouTube as part of the announcement for the overall headquarters, and the fact that I'm still working on the program, that one of the programs that's going to live in that building, and I still support the design teams that have taken that concept and have actually poured concrete in Brampton at this point. It is pretty cool.
I bet it'll be even cooler when you can literally go inside the room
walk around
that you designed.
I am looking forward to that day very much.
I am also looking forward to my tour
You'll be getting
of this building. Sick.
You too, Lee.
Well, I'm more excited about the house, seeing your new house in Brampton.
Right. Are you going to live close to the headquarters or further away?
That remains to be seen.
So it's a possibility.
It is a possibility, but the program
That's what I like to hear.
requires 2 facilities, not just one. And I could be at either of them, and the other one is slated to be here. And
a new facility?
TBD. There's been some churn on the program recently to meet cost targets, and at the moment, I don't think it's trending towards a new facility, but that doesn't mean it can't become one eventually, right?
But a second facility is necessary.
Yeah, so especially when you're talking human spaceflight, there's a very high bar for necessary redundancy. Like if a system goes down on the ground and you lose control of something on orbit, if a person's life is dependent on that, you better have some backup option for getting control of that thing. And so, even if all the technology is built amazingly and it's super reliable, all it takes is something like an ice storm to throw it all out the window. If a human who has to push a button can't get to it because they're trapped under ice, there better be somebody else somewhere else who can push a button that's the exact same.
And I guess that's the scale at which the redundancy is required, is something like weather if you're far enough that the weather should be different, you should be good.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's other considerations too. Like, you guys remember the Eastern Seaboard blackout when we were in high school?
Right.
That took down Ontario. It didn't take down Quebec or Manitoba, but it took down.
That was like 3 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty big. But a sizable chunk of the U.S., all of Ontario, and then you crossed provincial lines, and then the power grids were isolated from each other enough that the others didn't cascade in failure. So stuff like that is in play too.
But I assume you've got power redundancy at the locations that I'm sure you could survive a long blackout, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's a question of being able to meet every scenario, and then that you have the weather stuff, and you have possible not so friendly actors who could cause disruption, even if they don't attack you. Let's say
True.
There's a hacking incident that causes insane traffic within a metropolitan area. Everybody is effectively trapped wherever they are.
Right. Is the... Well, I guess we could talk about the Canadarm2. Is the Canadarm2 operated remotely? From your facility?
Not from MDA's facility. It is currently operated from Houston, Texas. Clear Lake, actually, just outside Houston. It's a NASA facility, Johnson Space Center. It is also operated from Saint-Hubert, Quebec, where I work, from the Canadian Space Agency. And there are backup locations that can access the command capabilities of the system in the States in case Houston goes down. And then there's onboard control by the astronauts.
When it's like, I guess, what's the most typical thing that the arm does? Is it docking? Is it like assisting with space walks, or like what's the most common thing that it does?
Common is actually hard to peg down, but there's certainly a long list of things it does on a regular basis. So it certainly assists with spacewalks. Sometimes it's just camera viewing. Sometimes it is actually moving equipment or crew members around. There's free-flying vehicles that come up to the station that are captured and berthed to the ISS.
Like docking?
Well, docking is when vehicles essentially berth themselves. But if a vehicle's not able to actually perform that on their own, that's when the Canadarm goes out, grabs it, and then pulls it in. And vehicles are going more and more towards docking.
In those typical scenarios, where is the arm being operated from? Is it being operated from ground?
With the exception of free flyer capture, it's basically exclusively ground. Even EVA support, which is nominally controlled by a crew member on the ISS, they're starting to look at the possibility of having a certain amount of ground control. And literally everything else, payload operations or changeouts of equipment, unloading and reloading of cargo vehicles, it's all robotically from the ground. And this is on a program where, when they originally launched the thing, doing anything from the ground was something that was kind of seen as an unlikely scenario. They actually proved that over the course of the operation of the program, that this is actually the better way to go.
What's the latency between the controls on the ground and the controls up there, or the action being taken up there?
On ISS?
Yeah. Like, short enough that it's like safe. I mean, I guess I'm answering my question because you obviously said they do that, but I guess it's short, right? It's short enough that like they can control it from the ground.
It's a matter of under a couple seconds. I mean, there's actually, traveling for the signals on the ground, time of flight to the station, processing on board before it finally gets to the system that actually is intended to receive the command. But at the end of the day, they ensure the safety of this mode of operation by doing analysis to tell them, if the operator needs to respond at a moment's notice and we give the operator X amount of time to make a decision, how fast is the arm or the equipment allowed to move during this operation in order to make sure that the operator has the time to stop it from doing something extremely bad. But they've never had to get there because they do an exceptional job planning everything they do. There are very few really bad days. And
what about the gateway, which is going to be substantially farther away. Is that also being planned to be operated on the ground? Because that, I imagine, would increase the latency.
Yeah, the gateway vehicle, I've heard anywhere from 2 to 10 seconds, and I will be surprised if it's as low as 2. So it's definitely and that's one direction. So it's definitely a long time of flight for any telemetry to come down, human processing time, send a command, wait for a response. It's a very slow cadence of operations to do it that way. The gateway, or the GERS program specifically, and gateway on a broader sense, is actually intending or designing a large amount of autonomy to be built into the system. So whereas today we would tell the system to remove the software inhibits that are preventing you from taking off brakes, and then we would tell it to take off brakes, and then we would tell it to get into the mode, effectively drive if you're talking about your car, and then we would tell it where to drive. On GERS, what we're aiming to do is to essentially say, you're here right now, I want you to go there, tell me when you've made that happen. And it will figure out everything in between. It'll have a preset plan that it should follow, but ultimately it will get itself to that destination. And the human doesn't have to constantly send commands on a very slow cadence to make that happen.
It's using like some sort of AI to generate its movements?
Well, on the new one, we're still designing it, right? So they've done some work to try to introduce automation into the existing system, but for the new system, it's what we're designing today. So what we have access to today is what they get to work with. I'm far from an AI or automation expert, though, so I can't explain it too well how they're approaching that. As the person at the end, though, I mean, I understand what it's going to do for me.
So, okay, so you're saying that you're the person at the end. What does that mean? Like, what is your role in the operation of? I guess we'll go with the existing because that's what you're doing today, right?
So in the existing system, I don't actually operate it. I'm a real-time. Well, I say I am a real-time engineering support engineer, but it's been about 3 years since I sat on console in that capacity. I've been so focused on the Canadarm3 program that my certification has lapsed. That is my heritage on the program. On the new program, we're still very early. So it's phase B of the design process, and phase E is when it's actually in flight being operated. So right now, I'm the project engineer for the mission operations team, which is responsible for defining the team structure and the roles and responsibilities of everyone involved, sitting in the front room that you see when you watch a movie about NASA or NASA TV online. Essentially defining the roles and responsibilities of those people and the engineering support that are backing them up. Defining the training and the certification that they have to go through in order to do that job. Defining the needs of those individuals in order to make their execution, their support, and their training all possible.
And also responsible for what the literal astronauts would need to know to be able to operate and work with the arm?
To some extent, yes. Absolutely, because we are providing the workstation. It's actually purely software-based because we're going to use NASA equipment to run it on, but providing the necessary tools for them to operate the system when they're on orbit. Yeah.
All right, Kieran, do you mind if we switch up topics here? We're going to switch gears quite heavily here.
All right.
Okay, so this segment I've named Let's Talk About Sex, Baby. Because my favorite thing to talk about is sex. So for today, I've created a game. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to say a term. And you have to tell me the non-sexual reference.
All right.
Alrighties? Okay, we'll start with a softball here. Softball? Is that the term? Yeah.
Yeah.
Missionary.
So what's the non-sexual definition of missionary?
A religious person who goes out to convert a population.
Ding, ding, ding. Next, dildo. And what's interesting is I knew all of these. Somehow, really? I've just picked this all up. Yeah, over the years. And I made this game for Crystal just like out of nowhere. I just like on the spot. And so I was like, let's do it with Kieran. So, dildo is your next word.
I don't know if I know a non-sexual reference for that word.
It is a city in Newfoundland.
Really? You know what? I think I heard that at some point.
Oh, yeah.
You knew that, Lee?
Yeah. I was just talking to like a coworker, and then he's like, "Hey, have you been to dildo?" And I was like, "Excuse me." Okay, next word. Doggy style.
The closest thing I can think of to a non-sexual reference is the Bloodhound Gang. That is clearly still a sexual reference.
You and me, baby.
I got nothing.
It is an album for Snoop Dogg. Doggy Style is an album.
Doggy style came before the sexual term?
There's no way.
Yeah, there's no
But
way.
there's
But
just... But that is a non-sexual term.
Oh, I see.
It's just an album.
Is doggy style a yoga move?
Downward dog.
Downward dog.
Hey, Luke, you might come over
But that's
do some
that's
yoga
still
with me?
in doggy style. though.
Downward dog. I'm trying to think of what downward dog looks like. It's like your arms are out forward and your butt's like way up in the air, right?
Yeah,
like your
that's
arms are
doggy
out on the
style.
ground.
Yeah, you're
That's
primed for
doggy style.
Yeah, you're primed. Absolutely. You want to come over and do some yoga? Okay, Kieran, I wonder if you'll actually know this one. I'm very curious. Deep throat.
It was the name of not a spy or an undercover operative, but like for Nixon, there was somebody who broke into... No. Was that Watergate? It was espionage.
You
somehow.
are on the right track.
It was
you're on the right
espionage,
track.
wasn't it? Wasn't
Yeah.
Watergate then.
I don't know where or when it was used, because I just listened to a whole bunch of podcasts, and this one was just in one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it can be a nickname for an agent, usually like an intelligence agent or a reporter.
Okay.
And it just refers to the secrets that they keep deep in their throat. So they just know a lot of secrets and a lot of classified information. Deep throat. You could be like Agent Deep Throat.
I think that's probably a movie.
If you're good at, or if you are holding a lot of secrets, you can be referred to as deep throat.
You could be referred to it, yeah.
Got it.
All right, Kieran, next. So we'll give you a ding 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 for that one. So you're 2 and 2.
All right.
Gang bang.
I'm just thinking of gang violence.
That is correct. So gang banger is a term for someone who is in a gang that generally shoots people. So a gang bang is actually like a group of guys shooting a victim to death. And that was where like the term came from. If you could think of the sexual term. So I thought of something, and I'm just going to go for it, all right? And let's see if you get this.
All right.
Anal double fisting.
What? You telling me there's a non-sexual reference?
It's okay. That was a curveball. Those are two different terms. You can start with either one: anal or double fisting.
I mean, anal is just either of the anus or somebody who is unreasonably strict about something.
Yup. Ding ding ding.
Well, anal retentive, right, is where it comes from.
I never looked that up. Is that completely true?
Yeah.
You looked it up? Okay. Anal retentive.
And double fisting is just holding 2 drinks.
Ding ding ding. Okay, so where are we at here?
Nice.
I think you have 5 to 2. 5 to 2. Okay, last one.
Better than I thought.
Last one. Bukake.
I got nothing on that one.
Well, in Japanese, it literally means the act of splashing. That I didn't know. I had to look that up. But I did know that it's also the name of a noodle dish, because I saw it on a menu in Hawaii.
Did you order
Bukake
it?
udon. I was going to, but I was like, I really don't feel like it. So, I forget what I ended up getting. Some other udon. But yeah, bukake.
You
means
weren't
act of
sure
splashing.
what was going to be given to you when you ordered that, so
They're like, sir, please get on your knees.
Place was sketchy, but not sketchy enough to know.
Okay, you did pretty good. So, there are 2 more questions that I have, but these are so simple. But I just realized you're 5 and 3, so let's round it out to make a perfect 10 here.
All right.
The term cock.
It's a rooster.
Ding, ding, ding. 6 and 3. And the term pussy.
Cat.
Ding, ding, ding. Or, alternatively, for bonus.
Bonus.
I feel like I will this. No, I'm coming up empty.
I see you're so manly, you've never been called a pussy.
Okay. I suppose not often enough.
Well, I was looking for wimp. A wimp or someone who's a scaredy cat. A pussy. Okay, 8 out of 10. Pretty good. Pretty good. And that concludes the Let's Talk About Sex, Baby segment.
That was
Magoo,
amazing.
you got a question for you got questions for Kieran?
Yeah, I do. So, SpaceX and what SpaceX is doing with NASA. This didn't really click with me until recently, but I guess this is like what MDA is already doing with the CSA, right? And that NASA is now contracting out a lot of their work to commercial industry. And that's basically what MDA has been doing with the CSA.
Yeah.
Is that similar to what's happening? And like, how come it took so long for NASA to start doing this? And why has like the CSA been doing it for so long?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because there are some major differences between the two approaches, but at the same time, you're totally right. Like, the CSA has been contracting to a prime contractor for a sizable portion of their work or their contribution to space programs for quite a while. And I'm going to start off by saying, like, right off the bat, most of what I know or think about this stuff is, from work or what I've simply picked up over the years. I don't necessarily seek out information on this type.
You haven't talked to Elon Musk?
Not since we had breakfast last week, no.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm in the space industry, but as soon as I punch out, I actually don't care. Like, I'm actually kind of an aberration. Yeah, it's not that I don't care, but I don't make it to pay attention, is what I should say. Like, I won't get up at the crack of midnight to watch a launch if I've gone to bed. Stuff like that. Everybody else.
But I assume you follow fairly closely what SpaceX is doing, or no?
Somewhat, but probably less than you would think. It touches on my work, which is why I end up hearing about it as often, and other people talk about it as often as anything. The really interesting thing about the CSA versus NASA is their mandates are very different. NASA is a large organization that has a mandate to explore, among doing a lot of other things, to explore space. And CSA is a small organization, even relative, if you compare country sizes, it's smaller than NASA on a relative basis. It is a small organization that has a mandate to foster Canadian space industry. They don't have a mandate to do the stuff themselves. Whereas NASA's an army, right? And so the CSA, by its nature, has to rely on the industry. It's what it was built to do. NASA took the time it took to get there. They were built to do a very different thing, right? Went through the space race. It was a government-funded thing at that time to beat the Soviets for a government objective. Didn't really matter how. I
see. So NASA's goal was and still is, the primary goal is space exploration. The best way that they had to accomplish that before was to just do it themselves, and they're now finding out that the best way to do that is to contract it out. So they're just pivoting to still continue their goal of space exploration.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, right? And part of contracting that stuff out, enabling space exploration, isn't necessarily that they're paying other people to explore space for them. It's that they're now paying people or paying companies to do the things they know how to do really, really well, so that they can focus on exploring the next thing. And they've paved the way for industry to take over and be successful. But they will carry that risk into the next space. I was going to say space, but that's kind of using the term two different ways. Into the next area that they're going to explore. Whereas in Canada, it's much more, we do this together.
What do you think the pivoting point that caused NASA to make this change was? Was it literally just the ambition of these organizations to just do it and prove it, or do you think this is like a part of a larger plan that NASA has been formulating so that they can get the dollars, they can get things done cheaper by just partnering with commercial partners?
I mean, it's pure speculation, but I would be surprised if it was anything. I think the desire to drive down space industry costs, and whether it was a NASA concept in the first place or Elon coming along and saying, I don't care what any of you say, I'm going to land a rocket and we're going to use that and I'm going to cut the cost of space launch by a factor of 10. I don't really know where that started, but I think that's a big motivation now. I would be surprised if US politics also doesn't play into it, because you'll always have the debate about spending how much and on what, and in an increasingly polarized government in the US, or a political environment in the US, I think there's really good incentive to show that for an organization like NASA that wants to be kind of as independent of that as it can be, that yes, we cost money, but we also make industry money, and so we're not just a money hole here. I think there's part of that involved too, and then I think part of it is that what humans are focused on has changed compared to when NASA first started exploring space. The space race was the massive catalyst, but those conditions don't exist anymore.
So why land on the moon now?
There's money in it. It's technological advancement.
Selling space rocks.
$10,000 a pop.
Yeah.
I'll take 2.
It's a very poor investment. No, I say it kind of callously, but I think that's actually true. The technology that we developed to take us there will ultimately spur industries to develop products and services and things that we didn't have on Earth, that can be sold, that can better people's lives, that ultimately will take us closer to mining, doing things like asteroid mining, a permanent human settlement. And you could look at it existentially as this is how we ensure the survival of our species, because we're still all living on the same rock. If something happens to Earth, that's it. I don't think that's the major driving factor, but I'm sure for some people that's a consideration. But I think first and foremost, it's financial.
Question from a friend. This is a question from Brof.
All right.
How realistic will it be to go to space in 15 years for us?
Like average people?
Yeah. Let's start with that.
I'm skeptical. We kind of talked about things take a decent amount of time when it comes to something like a space program. I think it's Richard Branson's company filed for bankruptcy last week.
Mm-hmm. What?
Yep.
Virgin?
Yeah, not the entire Virgin Enterprise, but the
Virgin Galactic.
Yeah, exactly. That was planning on selling tickets to go to low Earth orbit. I think for the super rich, it will be attainable. 15 years for folks like us to stretch and maybe get a ticket for a once in a lifetime experience. I don't think that's going to happen.
So there was a second part to his question, and what was crazy was Lou was like, in 15 years, and I was like, no, he said by the age of 50, and I was like, Jesus Christ, we're old.
Yeah, man.
So there was a second part to it, and it just said, like, I would like to go to space by the age of 50. How can I make this happen?
Get super rich.
Which I guess was like
money
more
I guess,
direct.
Right? Yeah, it's just money.
Okay, so then I guess the question, what would you estimate that it costs in 15 years to go to space? Right now, I think it's... Oh, I don't even remember. What were we talking about?
The only price that I've ever heard was $250,000 US.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And I think that was for Bezos.
I would say that's your answer right there. Whatever they're trying to charge today might be what they actually could end up charging at that point in time. I would be surprised if this doesn't follow the typical pattern of, we promise this at this, And then by the time, we work out all the kinks and we figure it all out, oh, surprise, it costs more than we thought. And it'll be more. And then over time, as this stuff actually becomes more commonplace, it'll come back down. But maybe the 250,000 15 years from now is reasonable.
Yeah, I wonder what like the actual lucrative approach would be. Would it be like, let's schedule one spaceship to go to space and get all the passengers for next year and just do it like on an annual basis for one ship, and that just like keeps scarcity like at an all-time low, increasing like price and demand possibly.
If you want to be as lucrative as possible, you probably just like make people bid on seats, and then people will just pay
That's a good idea.
a crazy amount of money to get their seat, and you can send them, and it just keeps prices extremely high. Would you want to go to space, Kieran? Do you want to go to space?
And in what capacity? Because there's the passengers, or there's like the actual astronaut experience.
I don't know anymore. I suppose I would take a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I always try to. So I would say yes. Not for an extended duration. That much I know. I mean, I got medical stuff going on that I know would be exacerbated by that, so to me that's not appealing. Short trip.
But you'd want to do more than just the passenger ship, where you just get up in space and then come back down.
Yeah, the whole like jump up there, float for 45 seconds and land just seems like a gimmick to me.
If they asked you to go up and oversee the installation of the Canadarm3, because you're the only guy we got that knows enough about it to do it, and we for some reason need that person there to help. Would you go?
Amazing. Yeah, I suppose. Although I would seriously question their resource forecasting if they're asking me to do it. Yeah, why not? As long as it's not a one-way trip.
What if you had to be up there for a month? How long are the typical stays at the space station? I presume they'd probably be longer at the new.
They're actually shorter.
Really?
Yeah. So the ISS is roughly a 6-month rotation. It varies, but it's kind of rule of thumb. It's where it is. For the new vehicle, the like nominal designed, this is how much we're saying it's going to be, is about a month. I've heard mention of trying to push it up as high as 3 months, but that's it. And it's actually uninhabited for the rest of the year, whereas the ISS is continuously inhabited. Whether it's by 3 or 6 crew members, there's always people there.
Why shorter visits?
Costs a lot more to get there. Costs a lot more to provision compared to the ISS. It's also a much smaller vehicle, so you can only put so many sardines in a can before they start killing each other. I say that cavalierly, but that's actually something they screen for, is psychological stability.
Do they practice putting in people in tin cans and see how long it takes for them to break?
Pretty much. I listened to a podcast about that, where they did it for a year. So I think it was like St. Helens or something. Some little pod, and you had to live there for 12 months. And I think it was like 3 men and 3 women, just to see how they cope.
For prep for like a space mission?
Long duration space. Yeah,
I think this was actually just like a pilot program, so I don't even think it was actually for getting into space, but they wanted to see if this program was like a good way of training, to see if you could handle like that amount of isolation and that amount of work and stuff, and they have to like go out and do like walks and trips, pick up specimens and all that nonsense.
I could not.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to handle it. I think I could probably convince myself that I could do it, but then I don't think I'd actually be able to do it.
Yeah, it'd be so tough.
Also, if it like is mimicking the space station, like I also have a bit of claustrophobia, and I'm pretty sure I would freak out eventually and be like, I need to get out of this thing, and I mean, I guess the ISS is a little bit bigger, so it's probably not so bad, but
yeah, the inside of the ISS, from what I've seen on camera, what I've heard described isn't too bad. From what I've seen of the 3D models of Gateway, yeah, your claustrophobia would go off.
Oh
Sure.
no.
Yikes.
Yeah. But there's another catch to this. You ever think about what it smells like in there? Apparently it's not
there's ventilation systems and
Is it just like body odor for days?
Yep.
I imagine that's the only issue that you can't really deal with.
It's a tough one to manage, right? Like everybody can clean in the techniques that are possible. It's not like anybody doesn't. It's just after 20 plus years of people coming and going, it gets to be kind of a stanky environment.
That's the $1 million idea. No, $1 billion idea.
No more space.
We have to come up with like laser technology that can burn off whatever produces body odor. And then you would just get the surgery done and boom, no more body odor.
Fun.
Ever again.
that would literally mean you don't sweat anymore, because that I think is the main driver of it. And if you don't sweat, then like you'll overheat and die.
Well, then you just need an
It'll be
implant
like
that-
only your armpits, right? Plus, I don't think it's the sweat that smells like body odor.
just need an implant that sterilizes the water on its way up.
Yeah.
Something that kills the bacteria.
That is
I guess
what
like
we
a
need.
UV light would be.
Sweet.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any issues with standing in front of a high-powered UV light for...
No, I mean like a cloth, and then you wet the cloth, and then you
For
put that
literally
cloth
forever.
Tanning beds. Just bring tanning beds into space. No one stinks ever again.
I wonder what it's like when you're nervous about your whole mission and stuff, and you as an astronaut have been preparing for this whole thing, and they tell you all that stuff, and then like you open the capsule door and it just hits you and you're like, fuck, man, like this is gonna be the next 6 months of my life. Like, oh my god, I thought they were exaggerating. And like the guy that's leaving is like, fuck, I'm so glad I'm leaving, like, see you later, thanks for the capsule.
Good
And
luck,
he just
guys.
pieces out.
I don't think it's as bad as all that, but from what I hear, it's noticeable. Yeah.
Okay, so while we're here, I've actually named this segment Asking for a Friend. And so Brof's question was one of them. And the other one that I have is actually from Evans. And his question is, what do you think is the best solution to remove or reduce the orbital space debris to avoid Kessler syndrome in the future? And can you actually quickly explain what the Kessler syndrome even is?
I actually will have to look it up. I mean, I can speculate. I assume that would be when we hit critical mass of space debris.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
To trap us on Earth, where it starts propagating itself at that point.
Scenario in which density of objects in low Earth orbit due to space pollution is high enough that collisions between objects is
Inevitable.
is the collision between objects is the likelihood of collisions is high.
Yeah. It's a little bit sad, but I think it's a mitigation issue. It's not something that is any near as easy to resolve after the fact. Once space debris is created, it's hard to track, it's hard to capture, it's hard to bring down, and doing all of that is super expensive. So, to me, actually, the only obvious solution is to specifically set out as a inviolable ground rule that when you put something up, you have a way to bring every shred of it down. And that could be your launch vehicle, that could be payloads that you're putting up there, be it a satellite that's going to last 30 days, or a space station that'll be there 30 years, but ultimately you build it to bring it down. Because what's actually just been happening is we've treated it as this massive empty dumping ground, right? And who cares if we add a few more screws to outer space? It's not going to be a big deal, but it will hit critical mass eventually, and collisions do happen already.
Wait, are we literally talking about the size of screws like that, or was that just?
Yeah. No, there's actually a really, really good photo. Try searching for it. Shuttle window hit by paint chip. A literal paint chip.
But how fast is this paint chip flying at?
Kilometers per second. Everything in
Per
orbit is
second.
going that fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like somebody shot the window.
Jesus.
Yeah. Actually, here it is. I'll drop it in the side there.
That's an okay idea. I'm surprised Evans asked you this question because I have two great ideas. Like, parachutes are super big. So all we need is a spaceship, attach some space parachutes to the back of it, and just fly the opposite direction of the orbit of the Earth. You catch so much debris.
Wouldn't the debris like rip right through the
Yeah. At that point,
parachutes though?
Your parachute.
No, you just make strong parachutes.
So this stuff is traveling at like 6 or more kilometers per second.
Per second.
Right.
That's like
Anything
3,600
I guess-
kilometers an hour.
I guess this is the problem, right? If you're going to put up something to collide with these things, like a parachute would be, it needs to be big enough to catch everything. It needs to be strong enough to catch them, which means it's going to be extremely heavy in order for you to get it up there, which is extremely expensive. And then as soon as you lower some of those levers, like it doesn't have to be as strong. Okay, now you can get it up into space, but then it's gonna the debris is gonna blow right through it, and it's not gonna stop anything.
You'll just make more debris.
Well, then the other idea would be just to bring up a whole bunch of lasers, and you just
Now
start
we're talking.
lasering all the debris.
You don't even need to bring them up there. We could shoot lasers from the ground.
True, easy.
I mean, that actually, if you could. So I think both of these ideas are actually interesting. No, in all seriousness, because like, if you don't fly in the opposite direction of the debris, you're going much slower relative to it than if you're going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, but now you have to go faster than the debris.
Well, you have to go faster. You have to go that fast anyways, because in order to stay in orbit, you have to go kilometers per second, on the order of kilometers per second yourself. So if it's going 3 kilometers per second, you go 3.02 kilometers per second. You line
Right.
up the orbits, you should be able to snag it if you're going in the right direction. You just have to time it right. But collecting a meaningful amount of debris that way, I don't know how you do that. The laser thing is interesting to me. Is you can actually impart motion on an object using light. There's a really cool technology called solar sails, where you actually unfurl a massive sail in space, and the photons from the sun actually moves the object. And you can do that with a laser too, from the ground. And I don't know, maybe there is a way to deorbit something correctly positioned.
Or better yet, just use a huge magnifying glass in space and just use the sun
to melt
to laser that shit
With a
down.
giant mirror.
Exactly.
All space debris is tiny army men. It's a well-known fact.
Well, all you need to do is make the focal point whatever low space is, or low orbit is, and then it just starts burning everything in that area. Also, so easy.
Nothing could possibly go wrong.
Just don't point it at Earth and we'll be fine.
Well, even if you point it at Earth, it'd be fine because it's the mirror that's reflecting the light back up through the magnifying glass. So if you point it down, there's no reflection.
A diagram here.
I think you guys need to
So-
do this tomorrow.
Talk to whoever you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
If it's Elon,
Kieran,
if it's
go get
the
it
director
done.
at NASA. Like, I know you speak to these guys on a daily basis. So, like, just let them know that we're here. We've solutioned the problem and we're ready to act.
As soon as
We
you get
just need a few billion, no
substantial
problem.
funding. Yeah, makes sense.
Of course.
$40 is for the magnifying glass. The rest is expensive.
All right, Kieran, I'm going to take you way back to a segment called Going Down Memory Lane. And let me know how much detail you need about this, or if you immediately know what I'm talking about and remember this incident. Fart bombs during our camping trip.
I do remember this incident.
I would love to hear what your memory on this topic is, or on this memory is. And then I'll tell you my side of the story.
Sure. What I remember is going to sleep or going to the tent. To
Okay,
sleep.
let's back up for the listener that doesn't know what's happening. This was at a camping trip in high school.
Yeah, this was our grade 12 gigantic camping trip with I think we went with 25 to 30 people. And of those people, like, it was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, just a trip. A whole bunch of us took.
I was not there on this trip, but...
Yeah, it's surprising how many people weren't there. But
Really?
anyways.
There's actually quite a few.
Yeah, I know.
it being a big trip.
Evans wasn't there. I can't remember anymore.
Okay, anyways, we've set the stage. We're at a camping trip, high school. A lot of idiots are there, obviously.
Mainly idiot. Almost exclusively, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, this is not one of my proudest moments. So I remember going into the tent to go to sleep, and I think Siege came in too. He was sleeping in the tent. And I remember a fart bomb coming in, and like, it went off near Siege's head. And the next morning, I was really pissed. And I was under the impression Dave had done it, and I didn't like punch him, but it wasn't just a smack. It was like something in between, because I was just so mad about it. I hit him in the stomach. And it didn't like double him over or anything. It wasn't like I threw everything into it, but like I hit the guy, and I still actually do regret that.
Yeah, he probably deserved it.
I don't know. I was just so mad. I was like, Siege could have gotten hit in the eye. Like, you can't do shit like that.
That's so funny. I'm pretty sure your memory is completely wrong.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it worse than that?
It's completely different than that.
Okay.
So me and Husick had these fart bombs from years before. And I was like, yo, Husick, we have this camping trip. Do you still have those fart bombs? He's like, yeah, I do. And he like dug them up and found 2 of them. And then me and him were just giggling like little schoolgirls at like midnight when everyone had gone to sleep. Or it must have been like 2 a.m. or whatever. And then we ran into 2 people's tents and just chucked them in. We snapped them and then chucked them in, and they just exploded. And one of them was in Sarah Cuddy's tent. And I didn't know you were in the tent, but I remember you waking up the next morning and it had stained Sarah Cuddy's sweater, because I think it was like a white sweater. And you were so pissed that we like damaged her property. But you didn't know I was part of it. And you just knew Husick was part of it. And you just walked up to Husick in the morning and just punched him in the gut pretty damn hard. Like, it wasn't your hardest, but it's hard. And I remember him doubling over and falling down because the man just got sucker punched in the gut. And I remember running over and I was like, whoa, what the hell just happened? And then you were like, Dave threw a fart bomb in Sarah Cuddy's tent, and now it stained her sweater. He's a fucking asshole. And then I was like, whoa. To be completely fair and honest, it was me and Husick that did it. So you're going to have to punch me as well. And at the time, I'm very sure you liked me a lot more than Dave. And you did not choose to punch me as well. But we apologized. We had no idea that they were like so old that this would happen. Because like the old ones just let out a gas.
Right.
But because this is so old, I don't know what really happens. But I guess it kind of just like spews out like this black liquid. And it got all over Sarah's shirt, which made you very angry. Actually, I was surprised that you do feel bad about it. Lou was saying that you might. And I was like, I don't think so. He's like defending a friend.
I still felt bad that I hit another friend. I do remember hitting Husick. I don't remember hitting him as hard as you say. And I don't remember Sarah Cuddy.
I ran over. Because I was like, what the hell is going on? We got friends punching friends here.
Yeah. And I remember you telling me that you were part of it too. And I was just like, I'm not hitting another friend. I remember that.
Look, I will hit a friend, but it stops at 1. Okay, so I've hit one person, and now I'm done.
No,
do you remember it being Sarah Cuddy?
No, I remember it being Siege.
Yeah, see, I'm wondering whose memory is correct here. I'm pretty sure it was Sarah Cuddy, but anyways, yeah. So that's going down memory lane. Is there anything else you would like to say on that?
Do you remember after punching him, you pulled out a pistol, like an old school pistol, and you shot him in the foot?
Yeah, it was one of those like 2-barrel ones.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Oh, vividly. I don't regret that part.
You know what I remember is we got into an accident on the way there.
What?
And I remember Lauren was like, hey, some high school kids just got into a huge accident on their way to a camping trip. And I was like, what idiots. And then it happened to us. A skid fell off a truck and Tien swerved.
Yes, I do remember this.
But because the trunk had all of our stuff, like it had so many coolers and drinks and all that stuff, he just fishtailed and his car slammed into the side of the median.
Yeah, I remember that.
And just like slid for like about 100 meters. And then it did a 180 at the very end. And I thought I was dead because I was the passenger.
Right.
Or I was in the front seat. And it was just this massive 18-wheeler coming at us. And I didn't know how fast or how slow it was going. But it was coming very slow. Like it was slowing to a stop. And I was like, I'm dead. This thing is just going to hit me and I'm dead. But,
Didn't Tien, like, last moment swerve out of the way, like super awesome fucking backwards off the road to save everybody's life?
yeah, off the ramp, we did like a 360.
No. I just mean like in the moment a truck is barreling down on you, you're backwards, you lost the wheel. Like, didn't he actually have to get out of the way? And he did? Like, that's actually...
No, we were just like stopped in the middle of the highway. Everyone had seen it because we were just grinding with the median for like 100 meters.
Oh,
it
so
was
the truck
like
just
a good
stopped.
3 or 4 seconds, and everybody just saw this car just like freaking smashing against the wall, and everyone just slammed on their brakes. And then eventually, because he hit the back driver's side tire, it popped, and then like once he came to a complete stop, the car just 180'd on its own, just because of the imbalance. But luckily, some lady chased down the truck driver that the skid fell off of. Otherwise, the insurance was completely pinning the whole accident on Tien, and they were not going to repair the car.
Wow.
Yeah, I do.
Or rather, they were going to make it his fault, like he was at fault.
Right.
But because that lady found that truck driver, he paid for it. And it was a 2-week-old car. Tien just got it.
My favorite story from that is Lawson's perspective that he told us after. I obviously wasn't there, but he had told us that all that stuff happened, and just in the same moment that you were in where you thought you were going to die because there was like a truck barreling down at you, he was eating ladyfingers. And he said the only thing he could think of was just quickly shove it in his mouth and eat it as fast as he could. Such a
what
funny
survival
last
instincts.
thought. Yeah.
That guy's a survivor, man. He's going to make it. Oh, what a crazy time. Lou Magoo, do you have any more questions?
I've got a lot more, but
yeah, I was gonna say I also have a lot more.
Time check. How you feeling, Kieran?
Tired, but I'm holding up. I can do like another 20 minutes.
Okay. I asked you before you came on about crazy stories, and the only one that I remembered was you assisting with the Canadarm 2, and it like needed some lubrication or something. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us the story? How did this start? Like, what was the catalyst that was like, okay, something needs to happen now, and we need to start figuring this out?
So the way the Canadarm 2 works is it has 3 main mechanisms on each end that essentially do all the grabbing. So you have a mechanism that closes some cables around a pin. You have a mechanism that pulls the cables along the pin and ultimately pulls the pin into the end of the arm. And then you actually have latches that come out, 4 of them, on the outside and engage and grab onto the fixture you've just grabbed. And those latches give you a lot stronger hold on that fixture than the combination of the cables and the carriage that draws the pin into the system. And what stalled was the latches. And we'd been watching them slowly get worse over time. Seen this in data going back. We could see that it was there, but it hadn't really been caught. And so it took what
does that mean? How do you see it deteriorating? Like, it doesn't latch, it takes longer to latch, or
it takes more motor current to latch. So the motor is struggling more and more each time, and it was such a it was such a slow change that nobody really caught on until it stalled for the first time. It was asking for more current than it was being allowed to be given, and so the mechanism stopped moving because friction was too high. And that was a big wake-up call, and they looked into it, and it was because they found that lubricant likely was breaking down within the drivetrain of the latches. And they also found evidence of degradation in a different portion, the mechanism that actually pulls the cables, the carriage. They found degradation there too, but it hadn't started stalling on us yet.
So briefly, before you keep going, like isn't every little thing that's put onto the space station like vigorously tested and has a shelf life and everything? Like, wouldn't we have known that this lubricant was going to break down in an expected amount of time, and it's like happening? Like, how come this wasn't something that we knew was gonna really happen?
Yeah, it's tough to say. There are a few things at play. One was at the time that they designed the system, they really, really did think that dry lubricants, the type they used, stood up better under spaceflight conditions than wet lubricants. And so they used dry lubricant. Another thing is, the system is well past its initial design life, and we've been extending the station, but at the end of the day, the system was designed for less time than it has already flown.
I see.
We do a whole bunch of investigation to see, do we reasonably think that we can take it another 4 years, and what would it cost, what's likely to fail, all of that stuff is looked at. But at the end of the day, you're past your design life, so that's another factor. It's really those two things.
Which is also the other part of this, which is crazy, is like the Canadarm is like mission critical, right?
Yeah, it actually became mission critical.
Like, it's used to berth whatever, dock, like supply things to the ISS, right? Like, this is, if it didn't get fixed, it's a really, really, really big problem, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, at that time, no vehicle was berthing itself, or was docking itself. It was all by Canadarm2 reaching out, grabbing it, and bringing it in. And so if it couldn't do that, then it was major.
Okay, so lubrication starts breaking down. Motors are asking for more energy, not getting it. Yep. This is NASA that, like, well, I guess it would be like the Canadarm team that's operating it that is realizing that this is happening. Like, who is identifying that this is happening?
I mean, so the operators at CSA and NASA would certainly see that this mechanism is stalling.
Okay.
And then folks like myself and those who are still on the team that I was working for at the time, they are sitting on console seeing that this has happened and trying to figure out why. And ultimately, the in-depth investigation was done by engineers in Brampton. And ultimately, it resulted in NASA folks coming up here, Brampton folks coming here. Everybody went to the Montreal facility, where they had the expert who essentially helped design and build these mechanisms. He was still there, and so they also had an engineering model of the entire lead, a portion of the system that had failed. And it was a couple days of meetings trying to figure out what are the likely reasons for the failure and what can we do about it. And there was, I don't know if it was the second or the third day, where folks were talking. I was fairly junior at the time, just starting to handle EVA stuff for the team. And I remember there was discussion that, it's likely lubricant degrading in here and here, but the system was never designed to have this lubricant replaced. You have to place the entire thing, and we're talking about something a meter long. It's more or less a cylinder of 0.6 meters across. It's pretty big, it's pretty heavy, and it's pretty expensive. And it would take time to build and get it up, there. And even the one that was up there already would take time to actually get it installed. So it was a question of options, a question of cost. And ultimately, everybody went home at the end of the second or the third day, and the expert who had helped build this, if I'm remembering correctly, he came back the next day, and he had a screwdriver with coat hangers taped to it. And he said, you can stick this into the thing, and you'll reach it. And he built it in his garage. And it basically became the first prototype for the tool that was used to lubricate the leak.
So the problem is that the area that needs to be lubricated, because like you said, it wasn't designed to be re-lubricated, is like virtually impossible to reach. There's no like standard tools that you could even get to where you need to apply the lubricant.
Right. Yeah, you can't see it. It is down what is essentially what amounts to a hole in the side of the unit. And you have to insert the tool in one orientation and reorient it once it's close, and then blindly try to get it onto the mechanism that needs lubrication. And you need to do this in zero gravity with hockey. So it was sporty, to say the least. But it was a better option and with a reasonable likelihood of success overall than trying to fly on a piece of equipment.
So after you guys decided to do that method to re-lubricate, what was your involvement in this process?
Learning everything I could about the unit we were trying to repair, working with the EVA office to teach them about the system that they were working with, and I went down to Houston to work with them at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. It's the giant swimming pool where they test run spacewalks, and essentially helping the EVA folks design the spacewalk so that they could do this, teaching the crew members where the mechanisms were that they had to access, how they had to access them, and how to get the job done. And then,
so you're essentially training astronauts in a swimming pool how to lubricate the arm.
That's one way to put it. And then, yeah, when it was actually EVA day, my job was to sit on console and be there to answer literally any question they possibly come up with, and to assess whether they had done a sufficient job.
That's sweet.
Did they have a lot of questions? Like, were you involved a lot on the day?
That one, the first time we did this, there were more questions. And that, I think, was because it was the first time. It became something that was more familiar, because we did it 2 or 4 times by the time we did all the different LEEs that were on orbit. And by the end, it became low involvement. But the initial one, maybe the second one.
What's an example type of question that you would have to answer while things are going on?
I mean, this one's very... This is a very unique situation, right?
Yeah.
We're essentially telling an astronaut to stick a screwdriver with coat hangers slapped on it full of grease into a piece of hardware they can't see into. Try to follow some very specific cues that are essentially made from household materials you'd find in your garage. And then yank it back out, and they would ask, is there enough grease missing from this? Does the profile in the grease look okay? Like, it seems like we hit the thing, the ball screw that they were trying to hit. That type of stuff. So
you would be looking at like images of the tool after it applied the grease, the lubricant, and verifying that the shape of the grease matches the expectation that it hit the thing that it's supposed to hit.
Yep. That's literally one of the types of things I had to answer. Yeah. It was live video too, so like you would see stuff, because the suits are really hard to control, and they've got this screwdriver spatula situation. It's like 2 feet long, and they would put grease in the end in the little cradle that was on there, and then occasionally it would accidentally fling off into space, and they'd have to start over because it wasn't really hanging onto the tool very well. It was awkward for them to. It's really not your typical by any stretch.
Would you say this is like your biggest claim to fame? Or do you have like another moment that's even more like, I guess, grand, for lack of a better word? Well, like you helped train the astronauts to fix the Canadarm.
I mean, I did that. And even once they lubricated, we ended up having to change the hardware anyways. So I actually helped EVA folks plan their mission and train the crew members to actually change out the whole thing. And then I had to sit there and answer questions about whether it was installed correctly, things like that. That one was
so not
pretty
once,
big.
but twice.
Yep. Actually, so we did the lubrication 4 times, I believe, and then we changed, I want to say, 3 pieces of hardware. So that was a pretty intense couple of years. I think the Brampton facility is pretty big. I've trained a few dozen crew members over the years. One of many people training these folks, but 3 out of the 4 that are going to orbit on Artemis 2 that was announced last week, I helped train them to operate Canada.
Sweet.
Our Canadian boy, what's his name?
Jeremy
Hansen.
Like, they're on a first name basis. Oh, you mean Jeremy?
Oh, that's Jeremy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to the moon. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's really cool.
Guarantee he would not.
When you do these, I don't know, what do you call them? Missions? Mm-hmm. What do you call them? Missions?
Yeah. So
the mission, when you do these missions, how much of the decision making, like, how much do the astronauts do versus how much do they have to think through these things? Do you get what my question is?
Yeah. So that one's interesting because the crew members' time is so valuable that it's scheduled very, very careful. And if they can spend hours on the ground to save the astronaut 2 minutes, they do it. And so in practice, what this means is they have very clear procedures. They always have people who they can ask to help talk them through what they're doing. And they're trained to do 1,000 different things before they fly. So nothing is, super familiar or super recent to them. You get 2 days of training 3 years ago. That's what you're trying to remember at any given day. So they have a lot that's scripted. But on the other hand, in order for somebody to succeed in that environment where you're disconnected from everybody, if you can't think for yourself and be able to fill in gaps that no one else thought of, or provide the useful thing that you see in front of you, and you're not able to recognize the value of that and express it, you're not the right person for the job either. You can't just be somebody who can follow instructions blindly, but can't take initiative. It's an interesting combination. You have to be both.
So for this mission specifically, the one where you lubed the arm, the astronauts that are in the space station get a mission brief, get explained the mission while they're in the space station. I guess they had to manufacture the tool, which is hilarious and is like Apollo 13 vibes.
That's exactly what it was.
But I guess and you tell me how this works. They get the brief and they're they mime it out they practice it in the space station. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to scoop the lube. Here's how we're going to apply the lube, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They'll watch videos. They'll have briefings with their EVA training instructor. They will see slideshows. But at the end of the day, most EVAs are planned and tested by somebody else than who is executing it. It's just kind of the way it works out. So that's what they have to go on is those tools.
And so how much time on the ground was spent on the solution for this mission, would you estimate?
Probably over a year.
And then how much time does the astronaut who's gonna go do the mission get in the how long would a briefing take for this mission?
I actually don't know. I don't do any of those briefings, so.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
jeez, that's incredibly long.
For what if I'm remembering correctly, was up to a year. Actually, you know what? I revised that. I think the lubrications probably took less than a year to devise and plan. Changing those when they ultimately started failing, and we decided we could not re-lubricate again. That took over. But regardless, if you're talking about around a year to plan something like this, the crew member's outside for 6 hours. And so you have a number of people working this relatively consistently for a year, so that one person or two people can do something for 6 hours.
6 hours.
That's the air.
That's intense.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Is a lot of that just like getting to the spot and like getting set up, and then like I imagine the actual lubricating of the thing only takes a few moments.
It actually took 3 hours to do the lubrication. Because
of the nature of it? Like it was just, they kept trying and it was just not going,
Yeah, it's extremely awkward. It's not designed for this, so you really have no great cues as to, how to do what you're trying to do. There were a number of different locations we were asking him to deposit lubricant, so you constantly had to reconfigure the system so that the crew member could access different parts of it, and that has to move very slow. It's right next to the crew member. And they're just managing their tools. It's a little bit hard to describe, but they're in space. They have their toolkits. They're all strapped to them with tethers, so they're kind of floating around you like balloons. And they have to keep it all out of the way, kind of tucked behind them, accessible where they can reach, because their range of motion's not super great in a suit either. And so this stuff always wants to float away from where you live, and then handicapped in how you can actually manipulate it yourself. Everything just takes longer in that environment.
That's crazy. I didn't know that that the mission was that long. I didn't know that when you said it took like almost a year to figure it out. Like, I didn't know the scale of all of it, but that's wild. How, like, I guess that we can kind of wrap up this conversation here, but last question on this is like, how often do these type of maintenance missions occur? And I know with this is more specific to the Canadarm, but just for the space station, is it like a constant battle to keep it maintained?
It varies. And it's not always something that robotics are involved in or crew have to do a spacewalk for, but there's always maintenance to do inside, maintenance to do outside. Major things that require really going outside the box and doing something lubricating these or changing major components of the station are not that common. It's the minor stuff, and often the mundane stuff, like the toilet breaks down relatively frequent, considering you would expect that that's critical infrastructure. But
space poop is serious, man.
It's getting used the most frequently. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I'm going to go back to your question, Lee, about claim to fame, because I've got one more for you. That if you ask,
I like it.
If you ask my buddy Kevin, he used to be my boss. The one he would tell you is that I'm also a verb. So
no way.
What'd you do over the weekend? Oh, I just Kieran'd all weekend. Like that?
That would mean you hit it, you killed a crew member.
Whoa. Oh, no. Excuse me?
So, explain.
Like, do you have teardrop tattoos that I haven't seen yet?
No, maybe I should consider it. We went to Houston for, I think it was actually for lubing EVA prep. It's one of those trips. And piggybacked on that trip, I think. Because I was also a training instructor, we got an opportunity to sit in the simulator that the crew members train on down there. And the instructor from the NASA side was, walking me through one of the lessons that they give crew. And I got too tunnel visioned on one aspect of flying the Canadarm in the simulator. That's what we were doing. We were flying the Canadarm with a crew member on the end. Trying to support an EVA.
You can see where this is going.
Yeah, I flew him right through. Before I realized what I had done, I put his head into the space station truss. And since that moment, since Kevin was sitting right behind me, Kieran, a crew member, has meant crashing him into the station.
Head first.
That's so much better than what I initially thought I was laughing at. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm making light of a very potential serious situation here.
No, I've never been involved in actually harming a crew member.
Oh, actually, my claim to fame is I killed an astronaut. So, cool.
I'm now a verb because it happened multiple times.
Yeah. That's Kieran. That's Kieran.
So before you go, actually, I got about a dozen questions to ask you. Mm-hmm. And I should preface, the reason we're doing this podcast now and why we kind of rushed it is because you have a little mini Kieran on the way.
I do.
Today is April 13th, 2023. Carolyn is due, estimated in 2 weeks-ish, right?
April 25th, yeah.
April 25th, so 12 days. And so I have a bunch of questions to ask you. And what I was really curious about is the before and after. Questions of like what you expected fatherhood to be. And then afterwards, I would love to revisit these questions. Maybe like way down the road or maybe just even in a year. And then ask you the same questions again. And see if anything's changed. Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So, time capsule questions. What is your favorite word?
I have never thought of that before. I don't think I have one.
Well, what comes to mind? Like, what's one of the first thing that comes to mind?
I'm trying to be too intentional about it. I truly don't have one.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Do you have a least favorite word?
No.
Not even a least favorite.
I mean, I assume it would be something hyper insulting and derogatory. Just seems like a word I would not want to use very often.
Okay. Who is your favorite person in the world?
Man, I'm going to be boring with these. I do not know.
Or I guess it doesn't have to be in the world. Just who is your favorite person?
I mean, I should probably say my wife in case she ever hears this. Like inspirational figure or...
However you take it.
Okay, so Carolyn...
I mean, my dad,
maybe there's another
aside from Lou and Lee,
I
assume you can't use us as answers to this question, even though that's a very obvious answer.
I don't know. I guess I've never given that a lot of thought. I mean, somebody who does come to mind is actually my dad.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of? You can say it. You can say it. Your dick.
Yeah, but we're cutting that part out. I don't know. I almost want to think about these and record answers for them again later. The experience with the new building in Brampton is a big one.
The 2-week project?
Mm-hmm.
That one?
Yeah.
Nice. What are you most ashamed of or maybe regret the most? And you can pass on this if you'd like.
Punching Dave in the stomach.
I was actually wondering if that was my answer. No joke. I actually do.
Not punching me in the stomach as well.
Right.
No, I remember looking at you and thinking, I can't do it. I am actually very ashamed of that event.
But is it recency bias because we just talked about it?
No, it's not. It's crossed my mind over the years periodically.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
I very much regret it.
You know, if that happened to me, I would not regret it. I really feel like I wouldn't. Like, I'm punching one friend to defend another. Yeah, I stepped out of line, but, so did they. I don't know.
Yeah, but resorting to violence is never...
That's true. That's
a good thing, so...
What's one thing you do on a regular basis that you hate doing? I feel like we talked about this, but...
Scooping cat litter.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say going into work. Okay. Yeah. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Vitality. Just to always feel good.
Does that also coincide with, like, immortality?
I don't think so.
So just however long you're living, you just always feel great?
Yeah. You always feel like you're capable. You always feel good.
And what does that mean? Like, you can ski as long as you'd like, or, like, jog as long as you'd like?
I guess I tie it mentally to physical, yeah. I think the best way to describe that for me is, like, when I'm actually in a gym routine, to the point where you miss not being able to go to the gym. And I haven't been there for a long time. But the feeling that your body is just...
so healthy.
It's capable, yeah.
Yeah.
That feeling.
So your superpower would be being able to go to the gym.
I feel like a little bigger than that.
Look, I really boil it down, okay?
I could tell.
What's one thing that you wish people understood about you?
You're not a rocket scientist.
Yeah, because that don't impress me much.
Honestly, I might say that it's that I'm not an articulate person.
Do you find that gets you into, like, not trouble, but, like, more stressful situations because you just can't express yourself?
Yes. That is actually, like, nailing it. Yes. It takes me a little bit to process through my own thoughts and even longer of emotion before I can actually put into the words that I'm looking for.
Right.
And yeah, that definitely is a challenge.
Yeah. I'd have to say that's a big one for me too, actually. Like, I end up doing a lot of things that, not that I necessarily regret doing, but I wish I did a different way, you know? Because I do take some time to, like, really process stuff and then, like, articulate what I want to say or how I want to handle the situation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if it's almost a slight benefit that you require the time to process and then articulate what your thoughts are. Because I think I'm the opposite. I think I just speak as fast as I can when I have to say something. And then later I'm like, yeah, I probably could have said that differently. Or like I meant something different than what actually came out. But I wanted to speak so fast that it just came out.
Right.
You know?
Like, just very reactive.
Right.
I think under certain circumstances that's true. It gets really challenging for me when it's not the environment that actually allows you to process your thoughts before you speak.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. Okay, if money were not an issue, how would you spend your time each day?
I would probably still get up before 7. I would enjoy my morning coffee. It's more of a ritual than anything else. So that's still going to happen. And then I would probably... It would be one of two things. I would either head outside and find something to explore for the day, go for a hike, bike ride, ski, snowshoe if it's the winter time. Hell, why not get on a plane, go somewhere?
Yeah.
Money's no object, right?
Money's not an issue, yeah.
Go to space.
And then on the days where I don't do that, work on something in the garage, build something, fix something around the house.
There's so much satisfaction in building something, eh?
So much.
Yeah.
Especially when you...
I probably still wouldn't pay people to do everything.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to.
Right.
When you work all day on a lot of like theoretical work or even just like project planning and stuff that's like not even... It's just like... It's just like contributing to something, but you're not actually doing the things.
Yeah.
Getting a piece of wood and just cutting it with a saw is just like, it's just so satisfying.
I do gotta say though, that I love like doing stuff on my own, but it allows for those mistakes to be noticeable. Like if I like nick something, I will forever only see that nick. And I'm like, oh, I just installed the fridge or something, but I hit the ceiling. And now that's all I see all the time.
Yeah.
But like if someone else did it for me, I would not even notice. I would never know what mistakes happened.
So that's weird because I'm actually the opposite. I mean,
really?
I'm hard on my own mistakes, but I get really annoyed when somebody else screws something up. It's like, I kind of don't like when I screw up, but if I've paid you to not screw up, you do not screw up.
That's fair.
That's fair. I just mean like the small little mistakes, like nothing big or anything. Little nicks here and there.
Something that you probably wouldn't have noticed if someone else did it, but because you did it, you noticed, and it's now...
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
If you could change one thing in the world, what would it be?
This is one of those things that I'm struggling with words.
I don't think I have an answer for this either. There's just so many things to change.
No, I
to choose one?
I actually do. There's something about human nature that I would change.
Human nature? In what sense?
I view us as a species to be profoundly selfish and short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the root cause of some of the problems the world has. Whether it's problems humans have or the problems the world has as a result of it. So,
definitely.
For me, it would be changing the root cause, which would be that element, perception.
Yeah.
Good
Very
answer.
cool. What about if it was yourself? If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be and why?
You're going to make me pick one?
I mean, it's hard to even say anything. You're the perfect man.
It's only hard to say anything because I can only pick one. I would change how hard it is for me to process certain things that frustrate me. Probably has a disproportionate negative effect on me.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Burnt out.
Yikes. Making furniture in your garage.
Quite possibly. Well, figured out the money's no object thing.
With little Kieran running around.
Yeah.
Look, I have one of your charcuterie boards. I would easily pay at least $100 for that. So, I mean, you at least could make $100.
All right. I think that's below taxable income limit, so...
That's all money in the pocket.
It is. I don't know. Just happy with the family, enjoying life to the fullest that I can.
Nice. Speaking of family, how many kids do you want?
It's always been a never more than 2 thing.
And why is that? Because you grew up with 2?
I think it's a combination of that, and I think it's a few different factors. It's 2 is what I knew growing up. There's my genetics, that more that I actually have, the more likely I am to pass on the shitty genetics that I have. And I think it's also just, I think there's enough people in this world already.
Yeah, I feel like that's a growing sentiment. A lot of people are feeling that way. Yeah. Which, I mean, it totally makes sense if you look around.
Isn't the, population of the world decreasing, though?
No. We just hit 8 billion.
8? We hit 8?
Yep.
Goodness.
A few months ago.
Definitely just having 1 kid.
Speaking of kids, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do you think it'll be to be a dad? And whatever that means to you.
I feel like there's 2 answers to that question.
Okay, what's the first one?
12.
And why? Why do you feel that way?
Well, is there much else in life that's tougher, that goes on for longer, that changes so much over time? It's an exercise in resilience, and I this is my perception. I haven't even done it yet. It's exhausting. It's physically demanding. It's concern. It's taking care of the well-being of something that isn't yourself, someone that isn't yourself. That's tough to do that forever, right? The other answer is 2, because as hard as it is, and I don't think I've ever heard a parent who hasn't acknowledged that, I also genuinely have the impression that it's somehow, at the same time, one of the easiest things ever done. It just seems natural, and the fact that it is so worth doing makes that 12 not feel like a 12.
And you said you have difficult articulating. That was amazing. That was such a good answer. I thought
you were going to say that because in comparison to mothers, our job's way easier. But I really like the way you took it. I like that answer too.
I mean, I don't deny that I feel like we get the easy job in this. That is absolutely true.
Yeah, I don't think nearly anyone was going to dispute that. What I was going to say, though, when you were saying, is there anything harder than raising a child, worrying about them nonstop, doing this, doing that, making sure you get everything right? And, the only thing I was thinking about while you were saying that, I was like, yeah, but is there anything more gratifying?
Right.
As well. I think, the reward is just so high in comparison to the hardship that it makes it a 2 instead of a 12.
I think that's what Kieran was saying. That's why it's a 12 and it's a 2.
Right.
The difference is that's my perception. You guys know that. Next time you ask.
I think you nailed it.
I think Lou and I would both totally agree. Good answer.
I can get lucky once in a while.
And then finally, for the time capsule questions, what is the biggest or one of the biggest things that you want to accomplish in life?
This is another one where I know the answer. I just gotta find the words. I would say the freedom, independence, and security to life for myself and people I care about, and not worry the rest. And to me, that can mean a lot of things, right? It's obviously financial, but there's emotional, physical, mental well-being, general health. It's all kind of wrapped.
Do you feel like part of that accomplishment would be managing expectations?
Yes. And I do struggle with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough.
It's actually probably one of the main criticisms I've had at work over the years is back off, get off your own back type stuff.
Right.
On one hand, I think it's the bar I set for myself has been something that has enabled me to get to where I am now. But at the same time, it's taken a toll, and I don't think it should stay where.
Yeah, I don't think it can.
Yeah.
I think that's just not sustainable.
Yeah. So, managing expectations, a skill I have yet to learn at 35.
Like my good friend Jack Nicholson, something's got to give, you know?
I got another time capsule question. Bonus.
Nice.
What type of parent do you want to be?
This is like a one-word answer?
No?
That's a really cool question. I like it.
The kind my kid needs. I'm still sitting in a place of speculation here.
Yeah, but
I think there's a time for being strict. I think there's a time where that's a bad thing to be the opposite. And I think there's a time where nurturing is important, and there's a time teaching your kid what the world is that we all eventually have to. That's important too. It's just I don't know. I feel like it's all necessary, and measure and how. All of it is really dependent on your child.
Okay. Another question, another bonus question.
I love the bonus.
Wait, before we move on to the next one, Lou, I was going to ask you the same thing. Like, what kind of parent do you want to be?
I want to be a parent that my kids can trust, that can always be like honest with me. And that obviously has its implications of like, I need to be able to prove to them that it's a safe space to be honest with me. I want to be a good role model for them, in that, treat everybody with respect and be nice to people. And I also want to be the type of parent that can impart on them that they really should not take too seriously in this world, because it's just, you can't take everything so seriously or else you'll go crazy. So you got to be goofy and laugh sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that. Can I revise my answer?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I just want to steal Lou.
Oh.
No, it's locked in. You're locked in. That's the type of parent you have to be. Sorry. Okay, so bonus question 2. What type of husband do you want to be after you have a child?
Supportive, understanding, patient.
Are any of those things that you are not now? Or rather, I think you know what I mean. Are you not any of those things now?
They're all things I try to be. And, I don't want to make it sound like I'm not any of those things. That's true, but I think I could do better at all of those things.
Yeah, we all always can.
I was just going to say the same. Everyone can do better. But I think we're all doing good. Okay, so I just want to briefly talk about, like, your feelings on having a kid and, just a broad question, like, having a kid. What does this mean to you? How are you feeling about it? What are you excited about? What are you nervous about, anxious about? How did you prep? Did you do any prep? I assume you did some prep. Yeah.
Do we want to take a break here? I know you gave us a time, Kieran. I think we're about that time. How are you feeling right now?
True.
I am pretty drained.
Okay.
If you guys are good with hitting pause, I appreciate it.
We're literally, and I'm stalling so that I can say this, coming up on the 3-hour mark right about
almost
now.
Wow, we did it. 3 hours.
Oh, me, I'm 5 seconds behind. Mine is about to happen now. 3 hours. I was a little bit slow on the record button.
All right, so we can all hit stop here on our recording.